Good morning. My name is Tony Lopez with Ewing Irrigation. Thank you for having me today. I will be speaking in regards to weather-based irrigation controllers. So an irrigation controller is basically the bridge between the operator, landscaper, end user, and the irrigation system itself. We're talking about water usage. And Justin mentioned earlier about schedules and water needs. Well, this controller does it by itself. And it is just part of the system itself. It's not a one solution. So it must have a properly designed system and maintained system. So what is a weather-based irrigation controller, or WBIC? Now, this controller works based on the weather, the local climate, and it works with the controller by telling it how long to run and what days to run. This image here is part of a smart controller system. Now, we're only talking about weather-based. On the right of that image, you have soil moistures as well. It's another part of a smart irrigation controller. Preferably, there's systems that do both, that can use both type of sensors. But today, we're only going to be speaking about weather-based. Now, the scary word that Justin mentioned earlier, evapotranspiration, or ET. So we're going to call it ET, so it can be shorter and a little bit easier to understand. It's basically the water that's evaporating from the soil and the plant material itself. And what this controller does is calculate that for you, and then adjust your valves to run the correct amount of water to refill the water that evaporated. And ET depends on 4 things: temperature, wind, the sun, and the humidity around it. Now, last week we had sporadic rains. So what do you do when you had rain 50 miles out, but it didn't rain in your house? Well, the best thing to do is to have a on-site weather sensor yourself, because there is signal-based, there is historic ET controllers, and on-site weather measurement. There is various models out here that are available. Now, preferably myself, I would go with an on-site weather measurement. What that does, it is particular to your home. So the other controllers or controllers out there have sensors that go to the nearest airport or a golf course. Best thing to do is to get a controller that works with a sensor that goes directly to your home. Oh, sorry. And not one that connects to a local weather, like an airport. Now, we're talking about benefits about these controllers. You save money. Like I said, these controllers usually do all the thinking for you. They choose when to water, how much to water, depending on the climate, your local climate around you. And they reduce water waste, which I believe this is what we're all here for today, correct? And it makes you feel good. You're saving water for the environment. You're not killing your plants, because the number 1 killer for plants is actually overwatering. Not underwatering, overwatering. And what this controller does is specifically water the correct amount of water needed for your plants that you have in your landscape. Now, it also enhances your landscape because you're not killing your plants. We have some beautiful evergreens in the front. If we were to overwater those, that's the $5,000 plant that just went away that you need to replace. Hydrozoning, you could program these controllers to irrigate a specific type of plant. We were talking about crop coefficients earlier. This controller does that for you as well. You just need to put the type of plant you have, and it will tell you how much water that plant needs. And the end user, really these controllers help the end user, your landscaper, homeowner, in a very convenient way. You could automatically control them from your phone now. They are dependent on the models. Wi-Fi is very in right now. We do have some models in the raffle for that. However, one thing to consider is sensors. To save water, we have maintenance flaws. Sometimes we have a sprinkler that breaks down and no one knows at all. Like I said earlier, your neighbor calls, says, hey, you have a broken sprinkler. What can we do about it? If you're not home, then you could just go on your phone and shut off the whole system. However, that does require for you to install a flow sensor with that controller. So in the beginning, I mentioned that of your irrigation system. And things just to consider. The biggest part is that these controllers are not a one answer to everything. Your installer, your contractor is someone that you need to get on hand with to make sure they understand what soil type. If you have a slope, we just had that image of that enormous hill, and watering that versus a very flat area is very different. And normally we're just talking about fines regarding water runoff. A slope is going to run off a lot quicker than a flat surface. This controller is also going to tell you how much your soil will fill up as far as saturation levels. Now, that's very important because we're not really watering grass, we're not really watering trees, we're watering the root system. And I think we need to look at it in that manner. It's that we're watering roots. And these controllers, again, we talk about minutes, days. Well, how do you measure water in minutes and days? What this controller does is it translates minutes and days into inches of water that your root system, your trees need, and your plants require to keep going forward. Now, additional equipment, we were talking about rebates. A lot of these controllers do have additional sensors in order for them to work just more efficiently. When choosing a system, please go with your contractor, your water provider, and make sure that nothing else is required. Very big thing right now is monthly subscriptions. So when considering a web-based controller, make sure either it's Wi-Fi based, meaning you don't have to pay anything, because if it's cellular, you would need to pay a monthly fee. Currently, I live in an HOA, and my HOA's fees just went up this year because our water usage on our outdoor landscape was higher than normal. I'm not happy about it, and anyone else that lives in HOA and gets raises every month or every year, pretty sure you know how I feel. One thing that I see a lot is just water waste. So we do not have weather-based controllers in our HOA, and I think considers the maintenance there. Find a registered contractor on the CLCA that understands the correlation between soil, plant types, and their gradient. That's probably the most important part of this, because as smart as the controller is, the person programming it needs to understand the language they need to run efficiently, to run the correct amount of water. If you put a watering schedule for a succulent on grass, well, your grass is going to die. And what's the contribution? Well, we're talking about water savings here. Each controller on the low end is measured to save 7,600 gallons annually per household. Now, we're talking about cost per CCFs. It's a lot of water savings per household, and we're just wasting that money because we're not irrigating properly. So when we're talking about weather-based irrigation controllers, we also need to talk about what they're not. They're not protection against nature. Really, you're gonna have accidents that you can't control, trees tipping over like this, water mains breaking, and you just can't control those influences out there. So you gotta have the right partners, meaning your landscapers, who are gonna be out there and know how to correct that issue. Cars, bad installations, we have a valve box on concrete. It is a lot more common than you may think. These controllers are not going to fix a bad system. So to have someone from your local city, go out there and do an audit. It's the best thing for you. Bad system design is really not going to be fixed by a weather-based controller. And poor maintenance, again, something is broken, the controller is not going to fix it. The controller is only there to control the amount of water that is being applied directly for your area. So, and just to go on summary of this, the controller itself, a weather-based irrigation controller, is just a part of your irrigation system. It is not gonna be a one fix for everything. It must be part of someone who can maintain it properly, someone who can design it properly, and it's gonna take maintenance. It's a tool and needs someone to go out there to properly program it, check that it's working properly, check that the sensors are in the right areas, and someone to check the batteries. I mean, these sensors will have batteries. Usually they do last around 10 years, but if you don't have someone checking them, I mean, that sensor is not gonna be working properly. And again, it needs someone, contractor and user, who understands the relationship between water, soil, and plants. It all goes together. We're talking about the footprint of water percolation around here earlier. I believe half of the water that we waste is outdoors, meaning your landscape. And if we could retain that water, we could retain that underwater that we have for the cities. So I think it goes all around. Saving your landscape water is just part of the whole city, not just your own home and your own pockets. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm here. Yes.
We have a system that is signal-based. Is it possible to upgrade a signal-based controller to a site-specific? Can you add a weather thing to that?
So it is dependent on your manufacturer. With that, what was that?
Weather track.
Weather track. So weather track is a great controller. The best thing with that is that I believe you will need to do a upgrade on the software that you have. The best thing to do is actually contact your vendor or whoever you acquired it from. Some of these controllers will range. WeatherTrack is actually a very pricey controller, but the key benefits on it are just tremendous. That said, it is best to call their tech support and see if you can get an on-site weather station.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So all questions going forward, can I take them outside, please? Thank you.